Okay, just a second. Okay, so greetings, this is Erodo Jumbo. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a low poly table using Blender Python. Before we begin, quick reminder that every day I host a live stream. It's available on ojambo.com. Go to watch menu, live sub menu. You can see the topics for this and future live streams. And also, you're free to ask any questions in the live chat about programming or lifestyle topics. And as you can see in the article, there's a link right to the live stream where you can post your requests. Also, be sure to subscribe, like, follow, and leave comments for more frequent content. I'd like to thank everybody who subscribed so far this month. Thanks again, keep it up. It motivates me to keep on making tutorials just like this one. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to create a procedural textured low poly table in Blender using Python and display it in a web browser. So for this particular tutorial, as you can see, the texture is not showing up. So I want to do a dedicated tutorial on that. So that will be next time. Probably next week I will explain how that works. It's actually pretty easy, but I don't want to introduce so much stuff, otherwise the tutorial will take way too long. So it is textured, I will prove it to you, but you just need to add some more code, and you have to decide what type of image. It prefers one image, so I said I'll explain that in a separate tutorial. As you can see right now, it doesn't show the textured the texture on especially the tabletop, but I'll show you how to do that, I said, in an upcoming tutorial. And you guys will actually like that one. Okay, so again, this is a beginner friendly tutorial, that's the reason. And show you how to create a procedural. Procedure just means program or programmatically. Textured low poly table using Blender's Python API. You learn how to generate the model, apply a wood texture, and export it as a GLB. That stands for, it's the same as the GLTF. That's a format that's promoted by the Kronos group, and displayed in the web browser using the model viewer tag. The guide is perfect for those starting with 3D modeling in Blender and web development. Okay, so you need to know a little bit about Python. I'll talk about more of that later. So as you can see here, I have the Blender script. So I'm gonna go through this. So basically, I'll zoom out just a little bit more. There we go, that should be better. So the first thing we do is, as usual, we import the Blender Python module, then you import the OS. The OS is only needed because I don't like using absolute paths. I like using relative paths, especially in the same folder where the files are. So that means that when I'm saving this GLB file, or I'm creating a blend file, I like it to be in the same folder as obviously the Python file. That's why I need the OS, but you don't need, if you're going to use absolute paths, go ahead. Or by default, I think it will save into your user's folder. So as I said, I prefer this way. So as you can see, the first thing we do is we delete all existing mesh objects in the scene. The reason we do that is because we are trying to feature-proof the script as much as possible, because in the future, for example, right now, as of 2025 in Blender 4.5 LTS version, what Blender does is, by default, you get a default cube, you get a default light, and you get a default camera. So who knows what will happen in the future? In the future, they might add extra stuff, or they might remove one. So if you're depending on it, it's not a good idea. That's why it's when you're scripting, it's always better to kind of future-proof it as much as possible. So we delete everything and only add the ones we want. So for example, I don't need the cube, obviously. I don't need a camera, obviously, and then I don't also need light. Okay, but you can add the light and camera, and then you can use that but that will be a little bit maybe in a future tutorial, so a little too complicated for today's tutorial. Okay, so the first thing we do then, we also create some materials with a matte finish. So the first one, we create a blue material. We'll just use the Python module, data materials, new, like the blue wall, obviously, and then we create the blue, and then what we use nodes, we use the principled BSD, and a base color, we give it a default value. So Blender uses the radians, so basically you have to convert like if you're using RGBs, you have to convert that into radians. Basically it can't be greater than 1, so 0.5, 0.7, 1.0, and then we have the roughness, we set it to 0.8. That will give you the light blue matte finish. Then we do the same thing for the white material. The white is 111, or if it's RGB, it will be 255, 255, 255. That makes sense. And we also give it the same roughness, so it's going to be a matte white finish. Then we also make a brown material, basically a brown color, so it'll be 0.6, 0.3, and 0.1, and roughness will also be 0.8. Now we can actually start making our, oh, sorry about that. I didn't even realize I got the wrong file open. Oops, that was my bad. Sorry about that. Low poly, where is the low poly table? Oops. Yeah, that's what happens. Let's redo that again. Sorry about that. Forget everything I said. I was like, okay, the thing is still the same. So we still import the Blender module, Python module, and import OS. We clear all the existing objects, and we create an empty. Type will be plain access, and the table empty. So the reason we do the table empty is so that we'll parent it, and then when we rotate it and everything, it's just easier to use the empty instead of the individual pieces. So the first thing we do is we create a tabletop. We use the primitive cube, set the size to 2, location 001, and then we scale it to 2, 1, 0.1, location for Z or Z axis is 1.91, and we name it tabletop, and that's it. And then for the legs, we set the height to 2 and the radius to 0.1, and we create an object, an array, if you will, to hold the leg, because now we're going to need 4 legs. So instead of doing 1 by 1 by 1, we just run it in a for loop. We use the for in loop. As you can see, we pass in the these are the locations. We pass those in as an array. We put up as well, and then what we do is we create a cylinder. So then we set the radius to the same. You see it to be 0.1, and the leg height will be 2. And then the location, that's a location we passed in here, like for example the first one, minus 1.5, comma 0.75. So we pass that in, and then leg height is always 2, so we divide it by 2, and that will go through it will go through all of them like that, and then give them a name. Now the name will be based on the XY values. And then after that, we just append the leg, and that's it. That's simple. And obviously we parent it to our the table empty. Okay, so then we create our procedural wood material. So we create a new material, call it wood material, set the nodes to true, and that we set the node. We're going to use nodes here and the links. Then after that, we'll just loop through it. So we, because we need to use the shader noise, text noise, node text noise. Then we scale down the default value to 5, detail set to 16. Then we have another node called shader node val to RGB. We set the we link the FAC to the color ramp FAC. The color ramp interpolation set to ease. Color ramp elements is new to 0.7. The color ramps, the first color we set to 0.4, 0.2, and 0.1. And then the second one, 0.8, 0.6, 0.3. So 0 and 1, if you don't know about when you do computer programming, is 0 is over the first because we start counting at 0, and 1 is actually 2. Then we have a diffuse shader. we use the shader node BSDF diffuse, and we link it to the color ramp, and then we also input the diffuse shader input. Then we create a material, new material, shader node output material. So we link the diffuse shader to the output of the BSDF, and the material output into the input surface. And then for the tabletop, we append our data material, so that will be the wood material. Then what we need to do, we need to unwrap this. So again, we use the Python Blender API to unwrap it. So it's tabletop. We go to the object. We set the mode to edit mode, and we use the UV smart projection. And we have the angle of 66 and islands of 0.02, and then we go back to the object mode. Now we create the image for baking. So we set it. The name will be called bake result. Width will be 1024. Height will be 1024. Then after that, after the baking, basically we create a new texture image, because now it's an image, and we set our image node to the bake image. And then the wood material, we also make it active using the image node. And then we set the render. It only works in cycles. That's why we have the cycles render engine here. Then after that, we just basically bake the image texture, set the bake margin to 2, use cage false, and cage extrusion to 0.1, because we don't have any other things such as the what do you call it, the usually when you have textures, you have like 3 materials. One is like a bump map. We're not using any of those, but that would be actually pretty nice to do. So after that, we deselect the tabletop. We combine everything for the baking, and then we link the diffuse shader to the link socket name with the color, and then remove all those links because we don't need them. Remember, we're using the baked material now. Okay, and then after that, the wood material is the one that will make that one active. Then for the bake material or the bake image, we actually output it as a PNG file. We save it and we pack it. So this is great for Blender, but it's not very good for the GLTF. So that's why I said in a future tutorial, as you see, that's why I don't get too complicated. I'll explain this further. I want to give this an introduction, so and then it will actually show up in our export. So for the legs, we create a leg material, and we use the diffuse BSD diffuse. The color we set to 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 is the default value. Then we have the output material. We obviously just link them, the leg inputs to surface and BSDF, and we do that for all of them for each of the legs. Then we for the tabletop, we set it to smooth shading, or shade underscore smooth. Then we create a blend file, save path, absolute path. That's why we had to do the OS. So that's the name of the / just means relative to wherever it is. In this case, it will be the Python, this Python script, and then that's how you save it. We use bpy.ops.wm.save _as _main file, and then the file path will be the blend save path. Then our export GLB, same tab for the output path, and obviously the name. And then you have to use bpy.ops.export _scene.gltf. It's a DTF. So gltf by default is a JSON file, meaning it's a text file, but we want the binary, which will be the GLB. That's the export format, and then the export image format will be auto, and the export text coordinates set to true, export normal set to true, export materials, I have set that to export, and that's it. So you can take this script here, you can expand to grab it here and just run it into Blender. That's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to start up Blender. Okay, let me grab this code here so I can show it to you. Grab this code, and we go to the scripting tag, scripting workspace. Here you click new, and then you paste it in there, and then you can run it. You press this and you run it. So I'll run this. Okay, so this is because OBS is using the GPU. So it's probably better if I run it the command line, but I'll try to see if I can wait it out. Let's see if I can wait it out. If it does it again, okay, I'll just force quit. I'll just run it on the command line instead. So let's just go to the command line. I'll just run this on the command line. You see how fast it is. So here we are. This is the command line. Let me zoom. There we go. We just type Blender Blender space hyphen B lowercase. That's for the background space hyphen capital P, and then the name of the blend file. So obviously it's low poly hyphen table dot py, and then I might have to zoom out a little bit here so you can see what's going on. Okay, there we go. Make it bigger. So as you can see, it's running this, and it's baking as well. So to do all this, and then I'll open up the file here. So while that's running, you see it's going to create a low poly, where are we here, table. So you see it's going to create a low poly table, the blend file. It's going to create a low poly table GLB file, and let's get this out of here. Oh, it's still running. I can't remember how long it takes. It shouldn't take that long. Okay, so it's using, let me zoom out a little bit more. Okay, so it's just one frame. So it's just loading the baking, and then I should have renamed the. Okay, so while that's running, to tell me when it's done, what I'll do is I'll show you what the HTML file looks like. Go over that. So just usual HTML, the doc type, HTML tags, and the head section. There's a user meta char set UTF-8, a viewport set to initial scale 1, and then the title low poly table in 3D. And here's the important part. We have script, so it's a module. And I'm using a CDN. You can obviously, if you don't use CDN, you can grab it yourself, or see a CDN. So this is open source. It's called the module-viewer. I'm using the minified version. It's fine. And I just put some style. You don't need the style, but I like the background to be a slightly darkish, so you can see it similar to this. But you can choose whatever background you want there. And of course here, this is just an H1 tag in the body, and then here's the module viewer. So the source will be the GLB file, and then I say to auto rotate, camera controls, exposure equals 1, show shadow intensity equals 1, and close off the that's actually not needed. I don't know why that's there. The model viewer. Is this guy done yet? Okay, it's done. So before we run this, what I would like to do is I'm going to start the Python, what should I do? Oh, right, let me actually have this ready to go. I'll start the Python server, built-in Python. You can use PHP, so PHP is PHP space -s space localhost whatever port number, like 8000 or 8080. We're going to use Python instead, so it's Python space -m lowercase, and then you can type http .server, and then the port number you want. So I'll put 8000. So we can go there. However, as I said before, I want to open up the blend file to show you what it looks like. So this is right here. So I'll open this up. Just double click it. It should open up in Blender. So this is our table. You see, you can so that's our table here. Now, by default, it uses this shading. So if you want to see the other shading, which is the material preview, so click on that, and then you can see the material. You can see it's a wooden. You can see there it's a different. It's actual, simulates wood. And obviously you can render. I'm not able to render because there's no camera, but I hope you guys get it. So that's basically it right there. See, I'm using Blender 4.5.0. Okay, so I don't need to save it. All right. Now with that said, I'm going to open up the Chromium browser. I'll show you guys how to create your own custom. What do you call it? Custom extension. So just go to HTTP localhost. I think I used 8000. Hopefully I did. Yeah, I did 8000. So low poly table. Where's table? Here. Low poly table.html. So you see this is our table here, and you see it's that's a table. You see it didn't come with the texture. That's why I said, like, in an upcoming tutorial, I'll show you how to actually get the texture, generate texture onto this. So I said I didn't want this tutorial to go way too long, but I wanted to at least introduce it so you guys will appreciate why sometimes you want to bake and then have the texture. So as you can see, it does spin. It does rotate by itself. Right? If I stop with the mouse, in a few seconds, there we go. See, it will over rotate all by itself. So there you go. So it's a pretty simple thing to do, and you see that's why I created the empty, because otherwise you'd have to rotate each leg and then the tabletop by itself. That's why the empty is important. The empty allows you to just rotate the empty instead of basically, because everything is mapped to the parent. So that's it right there. So as I said, you can change the background color to whatever color you want, but I said I like the dark one. Obviously if this was black, then I would have the background a little bit lighter. I said I'll explain that in the upcoming tutorial. Okay, with that said, I pretty much explained everything here in the how to export the model and how to all that. So this is screenshots. As you can see, this is what it looks like in Blender, and then this is the script. So if you run it in the scripting workspace, this is what it will look like, and then obviously in the layout again, this is what it looks like. Now I said the GPU is being used by OBS to do this live stream, so obviously it's that's why Blender was crashing as well, because it also wants the GPU, especially in Cycles engine. Okay, so and then after that, this is the live stream, this video. So then if I play this, you see it's live, because we are live right now. Okay, so if you want resources to dive deeper into Python or Blender scripting, here are some great resources to check out. There's the Learning Python ebook for beginners on Amazon. Search for Eduardo Jumbo, links in the description. There's a Mastering Blender Python book and ebook on Amazon. You can also again search for Eduardo Jumbo, or you can simply click on the link in the description. There's a Learning Python online course on jumboshop.com. The links are also in the description. And finally, if you want one-on-one Python tutorials with Blender or just Python itself, you can contact me at jumbo.com. The links are also in the description. So let's finish up here. Congratulations, you have successfully learned how to create a procedural low poly table using Blender and Python. You have also learned how to export the model and display it in a web browser using the model viewer tab. This is just the beginning of what you can create with Blender, Python, and web development. Keep experimenting and stay tuned for more tutorials. And with that, again, quick reminder that every day I host a live stream, usually about 2 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to go to jambo.com and check the watch menu, then the lifestyle menu for this and future topics of live streams. And also be sure to subscribe, like, follow, and leave comments for more frequent content. Again, I appreciate everybody who's been subscribing, liking, and leaving comments. Thank you very much. I try to answer all questions. I think I've answered all the questions so far, so that's pretty good. Keep it up and have a nice day. See you guys tomorrow.